Hello and welcome to day 3 of the general election campaign.
Indeed, just to be clear, people, Fiona and I will not be voting Conservative. It's a good image, isn't it? Also, when I'm typing Sunak, quite often my spell corrector changes it to sunk, which I kind of think is perhaps it's predictive text, isn't it? It's predicting what's going to happen because he is going to get sunk, I think.
And he's soaking as well in that. I mean, it's very clever.
Yes,
well, whoever
clever.
did that image. But there's a few around, and we'll just to get us off before we get on to the actual campaign in Scotland. These are just too good to miss, aren't they? There's so many. And there's suspicion that perhaps somebody's infiltrated his campaign press team. We look at that.
And then he visited one of the big supermarket chains, and lo and behold, someone positioned himself very well for that one. They'll make a packet out of that photograph.
And then just the other one I spotted most recently, the press team thought it'd be a good idea if he came in and rebuilt the red wall.
Yes, it is. It is weird, isn't it? It's like, because you remember the last election and Boris Johnson was on a sort of tractor thing, and he was driving the tractor through the big red wall, and it's rather pathetic little figure of Rishi Sunak, and he's building the red wall again.
And then we've also got the Labour Party. We've had Keir Starmer up in Scotland with a very different campaign in Scotland to the one he's got in England.
I saw this. Labour's done that before. Well, I think the Conservatives have done it before as well, actually. Loads and loads of Union Jacks all over the place if they're down the south, and at least they've twigged that doesn't go down very well up here. But it is remarkable that the party that's about to win pretty big landslide victory, I mean, they've got a job to do to turn it around, but it's all looking like it's going to happen. And yet when they come up to Scotland, they change their whole signature, their whole sort of signage. It's just sleek it, isn't it?
It's sleek it, but it's quite insulting, because it's like they think that we can't see that. It's like they think that we're so easily fooled. There's been so much happening this weekend. We thought, well, let's just get it while it's hot. So far, we've had one canvasser round. I wasn't in, but my son politely told him that we wouldn't be voting for Scottish Labour, but forgot to get a leaflet, unfortunately. So we need to get a bit sharper at that. The election spend starts from the 30th of May, but you can't, even if you've already bought leaflets, if you deliver them after the 30th, that counts as part of that election spend. So I think certainly the couple of people I've spoken to recently have said they're going to be out leafleting in the next couple of days to get rid of stocks that they've got.
Our local SNP MP is out leafleting. She's been out leafleting the last sort of few days, actually. I haven't seen any others yet, but
this election's been called in the school holidays for Scotland. That means that there could well be a lot of people away taking advantage of that gap between the Scottish schools and the English schools. So applying for registering to vote at all, the deadline for that is the 18th of June. Getting hold of voter ID, if you don't have any, is the 26th of June. Applying for a postal vote would be the 19th of June, and applying for a proxy vote is the 26th of June. Don't leave it till the last minute.
We've got the info about the personal ID that's needed.
Right, there is a guide from the Electoral Commission on all these things, got all the dates in them. There's also guidance on what photo ID is acceptable. And again, I've been chasing my son up about this because he's got an expired driver's license and an expired passport. Those are both okay as long as it looks like you.
It does sound easier, actually, more straightforward than I had thought it might be. I mean, there's lots of things that I'm sure most people will have. I mean, obviously a passport, but if you've got a bus pass in Scotland, either a over 60s or an under 22s or whatever, then that counts. If you've got a disabled travel card, that counts.
A blue badge, bus passes, which is the over 60s disabled or the under 22 bus passes, and the name on the ID should be the same name you register to vote.
Yeah, that's sort of fairly straightforward. And actually, people who don't have any of those can apply for a voter ID, and you can apply for that right up until Wednesday, the 26th of June. I must say, I think that's cutting it a bit fine. But
yeah.
Sooner the better if anyone hasn't got it, or if you're just off on your holidays that week and you're going to miss the whole thing.
Now, shall we have a look at the actual Scottish parties who were starting their campaign? We've got a little clip from, first of all, John Swinney. This is a speech that he made right off the election being announced. A couple of minutes worth. We'll play that next.
Let me speak very directly today to the people of Scotland. I am listening to you. Most of you want to see the back of this disastrous Tory government. Of course you do. They're even more extreme and shambolic. They're so chaotic, they don't even know when it's raining outside. Never has a government deserved to lose more than Rishi Sunak's government. They are why I believe so passionately in independence. Because when decisions are taken in Scotland for Scotland, we can bring about a better country. They're also why I'm asking you to vote SNP in this election. To unite to bring about that better country that we all want to see. That starts by seeing the back of Rishi Sunak and his government. The challenger for every Tory seat in Scotland is the Scottish National Party. So by voting SNP, you can get rid of this Tory government. In an independent Scotland, never again will people here be subjected to an unelected Tory government. For those who are not persuaded of independence, I look forward over the next 6 weeks to listening to your concerns, making the case, hopefully persuading, but if not, then engaging in respectful dialogue. For those who are already persuaded, I can't stress enough how important it is to vote SNP on July the 4th. We will win our country's independence and win the powers to bring about a better Scotland through democratic pressure. So, on July the 4th, Independence Day, make sure your voice is heard. Now, I've only been back in frontline politics for a month. I couldn't have imagined even 2 months ago standing here launching the SNP campaign for the 2024 general election. But I'm here because I knew I could unify my party. I'm 2 weeks in, and I've done that already. But more than that, I'm now your First Minister because I've got a wider mission to unify. I'm in the unity business for a purpose. To unite around a better way of doing politics. To unite Scotland to protect our National Health Service. To unite Scotland to strengthen our economy. To unite Scotland to eradicate child poverty. To unite Scotland to ensure Scotland's voice is heard. To unite Scotland for independence. Reaching out, listening, persuading. I'm relishing the opportunity to campaign across this modern, diverse, beautiful country. I can't, of course, make any promises about the outcome. That's for the voters to decide. But I can promise you this. The SNP will be fighting an energetic, optimistic campaign full of enthusiasm. A campaign infused with hope for a better future. I'll be leading that campaign from the front. I'll travel the length and breadth of Scotland, bringing that campaign of hope and unity. I can't wait to get started. Let's get out there and put Scotland first. Thank you very much.
So that was quite a positive launch. What did you think of that?
Yeah, it is. I mean, to be honest, I was more sitting thinking, well, he hasn't got an auto cue. He's obviously reading that off a piece of paper, which is fair enough. It'd be in front of a lectern or something. He was reading it. So he's up and down, and he's talking to an audience. So he was obviously then going, he's talking to people there, and then he was reading a bit, and then he was talking to people there. But he very rarely looked up and talked directly forward, which, if he's a politician, he must presumably notice where the camera is. So I was thinking his team needs to kind of get a bit more organised, get him an auto cue and say, look, keep looking forward a bit more, perhaps. But then I was also thinking, well, yes, that's true, but maybe the fact that he's not doing that and it's a bit more kind of not quite as slick isn't a bad thing. Who knows? Yeah,
that's it. I mean, we've also got a clip from the Alba conference with Salmon speaking. Let's pull that up, shall we? This is a bit from a much longer speech that Alex gave, but this is a bit where he's talking about the campaign.
This is our unique selling point in this coming election. We are now the only party with independence as a concept on the ballot paper for people to vote for. Every one of these candidates is standing unambiguously saying independence is what you vote for. You vote for us, and when there is a majority of the Scottish people adopting that position, then we negotiate independence with no further test from Westminster. We use that as the mandate some countries get from a referendum. Others have had it from an election campaign. Westminster won't grant a referendum, therefore we do it in an election campaign. It's simple. It's democratic. It's the obvious solution.
You see, that is it's just in terms of what I was saying about John Swinney being a bit not quite as forthright as he might be. There's one thing about Alex Salmond, he's always pretty forthright, and he was there, and it worked, although he wasn't looking directly at the camera. I mean, he was at his audience, but it's kind of how he presents himself, isn't it? So what did you think of what he said there?
I think it's almost the emotion that comes through with them that I notice the difference on, because although I don't think presentationally necessarily John Swinney was quite as slick as Salmond, but his was more friendly and hopeful and positive. Whereas Salmond's always got an edge. He's angry and he's determined and he's passionate. But, who's to say that which of those is going to resonate? Yeah, there's some people who are angry. Yeah. There's some people who are positive.
There is always an edge. I think that's probably not a bad thing, and he's certainly, passionate. But I was thinking more of what he actually said. I mean, it's surely not true that Alba is the only independent supporting party that's putting independence on the front pages. I think he said the front. I'm quite sure what he said there, but maybe on the front page. I mean, that's not actually true. It's not. I'm sure Colin Fox and the Scottish Socialists would disagree with that. The SNP people would certainly disagree with that. I don't know if ISP are putting up any.
They are putting Colette standing for ISP.
Okay, so that's maybe one. They would disagree with it. I haven't seen any green pamphlets, but so I don't know if they've got it up front. But the SNP in particular, at their last conference, end of last year, I think it was, one of the things that they agreed was that their logo will be changed to have independence for Scotland or independence on it, and the first thing it'll say that will be on the ballot sheet when we're voting, and it will also be up front, first line on their manifesto. So, I know he's speaking at his own conference, but still, it does seem a very odd thing to say.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure John Swinney, within the last couple of days, was asked directly, was he going to continue with that? And he said yes.
Well, I'm glad he said 4th of July Independence Day. I
know. That was good, because that was what we wanted him to get in there.
It's just a gift. It was like a gift from Sunak. 4th of July Independence Day.
You mentioned the Greens there. I've also got the Greens put something out, different style again.
Taking a long time to say this. People are more than ready to hear it. But a UK general election has finally been called. It's time to see the back of a toxic Tory government. They've been imposing austerity on us for far too long. They've been dragging people's lives into a culture war, and they've been failing on climate.
And the Scottish Greens are ready to go. We are standing more candidates than ever before. With Scottish Greens in the room, you can be sure that climate justice and social justice will always be on the table. A strong Scottish Green vote in this election could be transformational. So everybody, get out and vote Green.
There's nothing about independence there.
Nothing about independence there, but I think it was in the National, Patrick Harvey had quite an unequivocal statement about independence. So I don't think they've dropped it from there.
No, I'm sure they haven't.
No, you're right. They didn't.
Yeah, I'm sure you haven't. It's just interesting what gets said on these things. I mean, oh come on! I suppose we should give everyone a bit of leeway, because it is just day 3. And I mean, I heard someone saying on the I think this was the Laura Kuenssberg show. I'm really sorry, I have to admit, I watched a bit of it this morning. I haven't finished it yet. But someone saying, well, probably, she was saying, we're just hearing broad kind of statements from the parties about what they want to do. We won't have the manifesto. And she said the 10th of June.
Oh, right.
Which is a long time.
It is. I mean, I suppose this just has caught them on the hop, hasn't it? Yeah. But I was in Stirling yesterday because of the 900 years anniversary in the walking, which will be a different show. But because I was in Stirling, I was able to drop in on John Swinney doing a quick round the country tour, really just having a little photo op with his local activists, I think what it was for. Before he came to Stirling, he'd also been at Rosyth. And this is a little clip from what he was saying there.
I'm in Rosyth today with Naz, and I'm really pleased with how the campaign is going. We've got off to a great start around the country, and it's so important that we take a clear message to the people of Scotland that we've got austerity, we've got Brexit, and a cost of living crisis in Scotland today, all of them a product of Westminster. Yes. And the way out of that is for Scotland to take decisions for ourselves so that we can end austerity, end Brexit, and sort out the cost of living crisis. We do that by having independence. So in Scotland, in this election, we've got to vote SNP, get Naz elected here in Rosyth, in Dunfermline and Dollar constituency, and make sure we've got strong SNP voices at Westminster to speak up for Scotland and deliver for Scotland.
Oh, that was very good, wasn't it? It was just kind of, and it's interesting because that was direct, right to the camera, direct, not scripted, just spoke. Much better, I think.
It was, and I like that ABC message: austerity, Brexit, cost of living crisis.
I hadn't realised it was ABC, but that's quite a good way to remember it.
Well, it's a good way of remembering it, I suppose, if you're if you're on the doorstep. But it's also it's quite a nice, clear message.
That second one, Brexit, and the flip side of the Brexit. Anyone talking about Brexit up here is rejoining the EU. So I'm hoping we can get someone come on and talk to us a bit about how that fits into election campaign. Basically Scotland being so overwhelmingly in favour of getting back into the EU, which could only happen after we're independent, of course.
And seeing we've got it, this was him arriving in Stirling.
There we go.
I think the mood there is very buoyant.
Yes, it is actually. And as you were saying, windy. It's very windy.
It was windy. I mean, you couldn't hear what he said, but what he did say was a variation on what that earlier clip with that ABC message. So I think that's clearly what's going around. Anyway, it was just a short meet and greet and some pictures. Yeah. Haven't seen any footage yet, anyway, of any of the other parties out campaigning. If anybody's got some or wants to throw it our way, then send it to us on indiepodcasters@gmail.com. That'll be helpful.
Yeah. But yes, we've got a few other things we're thinking of putting in. Like I was saying to you, we should have a wee think about turnout. I've heard one or two folks saying, it's liable to be a not very high turnout for this general election.
Do we want to touch on the Tories' Bring Back National Service pledge?
Let's do that. Big new idea from the Tories, Bring Back National Service. So we'll come back to that one.
So as we know, polls are jumping around a lot and will continue to do so. We saw a YouGov poll, which was a subsample. So, caveat, the numbers are not high, but it's giving the Scottish breakdown as SNP at 37%, Labour at 34%. So that's the first poll we've seen with the positions reversed. So Labour very briefly were showing as if they were in the lead. This is then back down again.
I saw someone wondering about whether that was a John Swinney bump, as it were, because that's the first poll that's been done since he took over, the first YouGov poll since he took over. But anyway, we'll see. It was caveat, subsample, so probably only 200 or 300 people in it.
Yeah, great. But it's all getting very interesting.
Let's take it. Let's go with that. We'll have that one.
Totally.
Okay,
so
then.
That's about it for now. But we don't know when we'll next be back. Depends what else is happening. But we will be back. So catch you later.
Yep.